Right. Well, in an effort to keep us moving and on schedule for everyone's Friday, I'm Christy McGill. Welcome to today's meeting. We're really excited to have you here and really excited for the topic today. Welcome to any of our new members that are joining us. We're extra excited if you're here. Definitely, we are so excited that you get to join us today and hope that you come away with some value and also put some faces to the many, many amazing members and board members that we have here at the FWA. Also, if you're a newer member, we hope that you find our private LinkedIn page. It's a great place where you can get support, ask questions, and not have that out there for all to see. If you need help finding that, again, everybody that's on this call would be happy to help you, or you can just ping anybody's name that you see liking and commenting on posts on LinkedIn, and we'll help you find that. And then for our current members, I think it's always special when people are able to connect with those of you who have been here longer. So if you see a new face or a new name, encourage you to, even right now, connect with them in the chat, say hello and welcome them in so they get a taste for how fun and amazing and powerful this group is. Today, I'm really excited about the topic, and I was joking a bit with those of us before we got in here that it seems to be when this topic and idea came up that my own habits, patterns, strengths in this area dissipated a ton in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And I was reminded and humbled yet again that this is a continued practice, not about perfection. We really want to talk about how you can have effective time, energy, and workspace management, and how all of these things can really help you settle. When I was talking about this with several people, like the thought for me was, how do you settle the feeling of never catching up, never getting everything done, always thinking that's going to happen for you in 3 weeks after I finish these 3 trips and this project, then I'll be able to do this. Then I'll be able to get ahead. And what I find in my own life, and I think most people probably find, is you never hit that spot. By the time you make it to that spot where you thought you were going to catch up and get settled, another fire happens, another crisis at work or in your personal life happens, and it comes right in to say, oh, that I'll push that back down the road again. And I'm really excited about the time of year that we're talking about this, because I think everyone, right, I'm already thinking about, okay, Thanksgiving coming, Christmas is coming, and I got to get a lot done by the end of the year, but I'm also going to need to be present during the holidays and feel good at that time. So we're going to dive into looking at helping you to look at, okay, what is your role and how does that affect how you can take and use these tips that we're going to talk through. We're going to help tech through like more practical time management tips, different things that we all have found effective in order to really maximize your schedule. Energy management. So what does that mean, right? Helping you look at when's your optimal energy zones, how to align your tasks and your day around those. And then also just really touching on like the importance of your physical workplace and how that can really impact your day-to-day. Especially, I think this is true if you're someone who works in a virtual world where it can be easy to kind of, I can work wherever, which I would say I personally found putting more boundaries into place to creating a really structured workplace has really helped me actually take a breath. We hope to, like specifically here, want to make it feel like you guys are walking away with really tangible tips and tricks, as well as a strong understanding. So throughout this, feel free to throw questions into the chat. As that comes up for you, you may feel like, oh, I'm not quite sure. What does that thing mean? What are you talking about? Please throw it in there. Or if it prompts a thought for you in terms of, I have a question I want to dig into more, you can throw them to the chat throughout the time when we talk. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for about 10 minutes for a Q&A. And this can be really, like, everyone can, we'll get vulnerable together. I think everyone that's here today talking is going to get vulnerable because, again, this is not about a perfect practice. This is not about setting yourself up so you can hustle harder and eke out one more thing. It's about really quieting that internal voice, that feeling of, I'm never going to be caught up. I'm never going to master this, and figure out how to take really micro habits, build them into your day, build them into your month, so that you can feel like every day you're showing up and to the best of your ability, getting everything done in a way that works for you with both your work life and your personal life. Really excited. We have 3 FWA board members here with us today that are going to share with us. We have Allison, who is the Senior Regional Sales Manager at Vital Farms, and I know she's based in the Denver area. And I'll use an egg pun. She's an excellent human. We have Crystal with us. She's the VP of Sales and Strategy at Full Course. They're a food service firm that invests in emerging brands, and she's currently working with Flippers, which I think means you're a hot dog expert. And also,
one of the meats we have
okay.
It's artisan meats, but hot dogs is one. Yes.
And I don't have any good puns. I've run out. Eggs is my only pun. I'm capable of making egg puns, and I'm capable of making anything to do with fish. I've got a lot of sales fishing puns.
Oh, good.
And then we're excited to have Jeanette here with us. Jeanette is the marketing lead for Barilla for professionals in the US division. These 3 were, when I was talking about this topic, were kind of brought forth by Julie Swift as people that she says have really mastered this. So I'm excited to hear from them, to let them share today. And with that, let's kick off on the kind of our topic starter, which is, what is your role and what has to be done each week? And then how does that kind of fit this topic? Because obviously everyone has different roles.
I'll kick off. Yeah, so I'm 100% remote Monday through Friday. I try to work between 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mountain. Sometimes it extends because I do handle Pacific. I handle the West Coast for our company. I kind of broke it down, 70% travel, 1,000% distracting, because, being in a remote world, we have shared calendars, and if you're not on top of it. So I think that I'm not very good at back-to-back meetings. So I try to break that up, and I try to put blocks. So I have to look ahead, and I have to really carve out time for myself. I'm also very structured. I need structure. But I also have learned to be flexible. So it's instead of a rigid, I have to hit, things this time, same time every week. I'm very flexible. I want a goal of hitting certain things every week, but the flexibility of when that happens each week needs to be very important in my life, just because of the remote work.
Excellent. Well, I'm also remote, travel a little bit here in ATL, and I'm so glad I'm here because, as Chrissy said, I thought my power was going to go out with Helene powering on, but here I am, and grateful to have all of you with us. My topic is going to be about time management, and I'm going to give you guys some nuggets and some things to help you with that. But it is and I said time management, energy management. Time management is yours, Allison.
All
Energy management. Yeah, energy man. And it's really, really tough because many of you may not know when you're at your optimal best. Things are just clicking, you have that great output, that creativity, all things on board. And for me, it's in the afternoon. And although I burn both ends of the candle, like to start off very early, still cranking, late in the evening, I find that my time, that optimal energy zone for me, is in the afternoon. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, give you some tips, and hopefully make you aware of what yours is so that you can manage that better and take some of the tactics that I share with you today on how to just be what my favorite word is, your stellar best.
And hello, everyone. I'm Jeanette Gerger. I am actually hybrid. So at Barilla, I spend 2 days a week in the office, Mondays and Wednesdays, and 3 days a week at home or on the road. And what that means for me, and we're going to talk a little bit about physical space, is making sure wherever I'm working, whether it's at home or in the office or on the road, that I have what I need to be productive and successful. And I think for me, handling every facet of marketing, not being a subject matter expert, but being a generalist in marketing. I have to be, as Allison said, flexible. I normally was a zero inbox kind of girl to get everything done and by the end of the day, and I've had to adjust, especially with the travel. So we'll talk a little bit about how the physical workspace kind of brings me some calm when there's not as much calm in my calendar or on my plate.
The last thing I would touch on before we kick it over to Allison is that everyone's role is different. And so understanding that individually and then how kind of you can take this information and use it. Some of you maybe have a ton of control over your schedule. I'm someone that does, right? I can put a block on my calendar and everyone knows they cannot book with me. Some of you may need to get more creative. You may have a weekly meeting on your calendar that builds that block for you. So feel free to in the chat as we're talking about this, if you kind of want, like, if you're like, oh, look, that's great for you, Allison, but it sounds like you can do that. I can't. Put those questions in, and we've all worked different roles. So we've probably been in more roles where we couldn't do all of these things. And then I think we can all offer some advice and tips on kind of how to work with your role to utilize the tips that everyone's going to share today. And with that, I'll kick it over to you, Allison.
Thanks, absolutely. And that's such a great preface, Christy, because my whole beginning, oh, okay, we're highlighting me. I was like, everyone's leaving. We're good. I wanted to preface this as well and say, make yourself a priority, be vulnerable and understand your true limits. This is not, if this is something you're venturing into, it is a challenge even to do baby steps, just with how rigid we've been, or just our habits prior. And it's not going to be successful cold turkey. There is no such thing as failure in this. It's just you've put your effort and you're doing your best. And that is giving yourself grace, I think, is a huge focus and focal point, and just really kind of diving in. And they think there's so much internal work that needs to be done and as well to make yourself successful in the time management space specifically. I also put in a quote, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I just, really loved that idea. So some things that I do, I can just try to like walk through a day that I kind of go through just to help organize my thoughts. There's this idea of booting up. So, I kind of envision like a computer, you don't just turn on a computer and it's automatically there. It takes a process, when, especially back in the AOL days, we have such an instantaneous understanding of the internet, but I think of yourself as the old AOL boot up to get onto the internet, the noises and everything. It's going to take time. You can't just wake up and hit the ground running. For me, that's not functional. I used to do that. I used to wake up, go to the gym because it was the only time I thought if I don't have time to think about it is when I'll go to the gym. And then the rest of the day was chaos. And I didn't catch that for a year. So I now have completely switched my schedule. In the morning, I boot up. So what I do is I slow down in the morning. I wake up early. I get coffee with my dog. We go to Dutch Bros. It's a whole thing. She loves doing that with me. Then I take her for a walk around my neighborhood. Some of you have been there with me on the Walk With Me series over the summer. And then I try to settle in really slowly. Giving myself the time in the morning really helps me because then I just feel more in control and not just at the whim of others. And I will come into my office. I'll turn on all my lights. I like a well-lit room. I have an essential oil diffuser and it has like a focus. I get these focused essential oils to help me, calming if I need it. And then I turn on non-lyrical music. Lyrics just really get very distracting for me. And I like music that's just kind of more, instrumental focus. So I can just really lean into it and then start my work day. And then, throughout the day, if that's something that you can't do, another thing I wanted to offer is like find one moment throughout the day to walk, to stretch, to meditate. Doesn't have to be more than 30 seconds. It can be a build-up process, but give yourself some room to just really dive back into yourself. Because like I said, I think the internal work is super important in order to give yourself to others. I think also something that I've had to work on is practice saying no and really carving out your boundaries. It's a challenge, but something that we're instilling at Vital is putting agenda notes into meetings. So you can't just put a calendar, you can't just invite me to something with no meat and potatoes in the actual invite of what's happening. We're now trying to level up and have expectations of putting in the agenda really needed thing. Can we renegotiate this into chat versus, spending 30 minutes to chat it out on a virtual, stuff like that. And then multitasking, I think, is something that we all do. And I do think multitasking is, I'm never going to not multitask, but multitasking 100% of the day, it kind of causes that residual, which is, I brought up deep work and we're actually going to bring that in the notes. I read last year this book called Deep Work, and they talk about this kind of residual residue. So if you are, it's kind of the artificial comfort in busy workday. So we all kind of lean into rapid emails, social media. We really love being busy. But with that, multitasking, you're just going to leave a lot of things. Important projects are also the same as artificial, superficial stuff that you can just knock out. And that can be chaotic. So at the end of the workday, if you're just kind of going back and forth, going highs and lows, you're not going to feel rested and you're not going to give yourself fully to your family at the end of the day and unplug for yourself. And not giving yourself time to just completely unplug and move on to, your personal life, it's going to drag into that. It's going to drag into the next day and you're never going to feel rested. And that's how you get burnout. So it's a big thing to kind of really pay attention to that. And I think that flows into time blocking. So I have 3 different modes. Again, take it with a grain of salt of what works for you, what doesn't. But I have a time blocking calendar planner. So it has, as you can see, all the way down every half hour. And I can really find myself a break and give myself a full agenda. I try to write it out a week in advance. So today, before the end of the day, I'm going to have this filled out for the next week. This also is really cool. I like this one because it gives me my week's priorities for the day at the top. I can send what this calendar is. And then, sorry, I have blurry, but I have a positive habit tracker as well, just to keep me mindful. And I'm a big to-do list. I love checking off the boxes and making myself feel like I've done something. It doesn't have to be anything other than you made a stretch break. Awesome. Check that off. I also really put in ahead of time schedule for focus and rest blocks. So right now I am on do not disturb and I don't respond to anything on email or Teams when I'm in a meeting like this, which I think is very important. Also, just something to focus. I think that all of us need at least a half hour to an hour, if it's a week, if it's a day, just to kind of really just focus in, have nothing distracting you and get your work done. That's priority. I try to, on my Outlook, I have it silenced for different periods. At 6 o'clock, I don't get emails. And then I try to honor that. So it's something that if you create boundaries, you need to honor them. So if you take time off, I'm a big believer of you have to take time off and you have to give yourself the grace and you have to not respond to things. Tell everybody you're off, delegate if you need to, trust your coworkers, trust your space, and just trust the process. For me, I always give the mantra, it's just eggs. And that helps me a lot of I'm a workaholic. I want to be checking my emails. Another thing that I have, total recommendation, my coworker gave me this insight, is having 2 different phones. So I have one for work and then one when I really want to unplug, and it has no emails. No one has that phone number but my parents and my husband. And so I don't have any apps on it. I actually dislike the phone, which my therapist said that's actually positive because then you don't use it. And that just really helps me unplug. I'm very earthy, wanting grounding when I take time off. And
Allison,
also,
I'm gonna
yes,
jump in real quick to kind of
yes.
capture something you said. So when you talk about creating boundaries, and this is just something I think for people to think about, depending on your role, having a conversation with your manager about what you need to do your job to set this, so then when you can then put those boundaries into place is super key here. You may not be in an organization where this is like organization wide or all those things. But I think if you take the time to be vulnerable with a manager and talk about, in order to do my job well, I really need this block of time 2 times a week. And where do you think it would be best to where we can honor this, so that you can comfortably put your phone on do not disturb or whatever you need to do that with not being afraid to have that direct conversation and turning it around to the fact that this is how you'll be better at your role. So really you're not saying I need this time to go lay on my floor and cry. You might, but really, really saying I need this time in order to do this, which is what I'm tasked to do at the company, I think is super key.
Absolutely, 100%, Christine. I even have a note in here, communicate this to your peers, communicate this to your family even, because sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm remote, so maybe I've communicated that effectively to everybody on Teams, like, hey, I'm not going to be here for the next hour. I'll jump right back in. But if I have a conversation going, puts me at ease of like, I gave myself the out, I gave myself the grace, but also telling that to your family too. It's like when my door's shut or when my husband's door's shut, we know not to breach that silence and that peace. And just the last thing I wanted to touch upon, because I do think work-life balance and implementing that not only in work but in your personal life is so important. And something I saw on it's Brene Brown. It's a TikTok that went viral the last year, and she talks about this 100% rule, and that between you and your family, it's you and your partner, you and your friends, it's a shared 100%. And when you wake up in the day, sometimes you feel 100%, sometimes you feel 20. And if you cannot together create 100%, so if I'm at a 20, my husband's at 25%, we do talk about it and say, okay, we can't fulfill 100. How do we communicate and how do we work together to give each other kindness? And I think even at work, I've been implementing that. I reach out to people that I know have had a hard day and I say, I appreciate you. And just going that extra level of saying, I'm sorry I've been nagging you, but I appreciate you. And just giving that thanks and just reminding everybody you're a same team has been really helpful. And people, just helps give that extra boost of energy, which I know Crystal's going to talk about. And I want to kind of segue into her piece.
Wow. I wrote some good notes from that, Allison. That was terrific. Thank you. Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, there's some similar parallels, obviously, from and again, thank you, Allison, from time management to energy management. But most of you on this call that know me know I have lots of energy, even at my age. But what I've learned over the years is how to manage that energy and that output. You can manage time, but your energy is what are you putting out? How do people feel that presence and what you're giving off every day? So many of you may not be aware of your optimal energy zone. Now, this is an acronym, guys, that I made up years ago. And you know what, Kendra, hold on for the chart. Just at least one more minute. Thank you. But it's actually what it means. It's at your best in energy, creativity, and output. So here's some food for thought. Don't our appliances in our home have an Energy Star rating? And don't we have a checklist of things that we do as consumers to save on energy through our place of residence? We do. And you know why that is, guys? It's because energy is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm on some now.
There is somebody that's talking. I'm not sure who it is. Whoever you are, mute. Thank you. So the reason why that is because energy is wonderful, but guess what, guys? It can drain us. So energy fluctuates to the point of burnout. You heard Allison talk about burnout, but here's the good news. We can recharge, and our energy is indeed a renewable source. We can renew it. So, Kendra, if you can put up that chart for me. What I want to take you guys through is the optimum energy zone. And this is really where you start honing in on where am I during the day? What kind of energy am I putting out? Just like our appliances and our consumer ratings on things we checklist in our homes and residence, when you are at a 5-star, it is that time of day when you are edging your ace mentality. You are giving it perfect presence. You are on it. My favorite word, as you heard me say earlier, you're stellar. Okay. When you're at a 4-star, it's that time of day, you got good bandwidth. However, you're a little off. You're not quite on your A game. Okay. Your 3-star rating, it's when things are getting done. It's your typical task. You kind of can plow through them. It is that multitasking, but most of your energy is being depleted by a surplus of things because you got a lot going on, but you can kind of always do your 3-star kind of energy because it's intuitive. It's that normal stuff that you got to plow through. When you're at a 2-star, you're almost out of gas. You're just physically drained and you're not in it. You have a hard time focusing. Some of you could probably relate. Some of you may be there now. And last but not least, a 1-star rating. It's your productivity is gone. You can't draw on any of your 4 dimensions: physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. You're depleted. You can take that off now, and we'll send that chart out if you guys need it. So let's talk about a couple of things. So how do we manage our energy? Let's dive into this a little bit. You can actually start by scheduling time to do nothing. Yes, I said nothing. Now, let me say, I understand this can be very difficult to do in our work and corporate environments. Trust me. But as you heard Allison nicely kind of outline, you have to do it to do a few things to help yourself. This means typically, guys, if you schedule time to do nothing, let me be perfectly clear. It is when you don't schedule any meetings to attend, you don't take any phone calls, you don't check any voicemails, and you don't run any errands. None of that. So it's just when you sit and you think. It's pretty hard, but it's powerful, right? Other things you may do to recharge, you heard Allison talk about, and this is where there's some parallels. You can exercise. Some of us choose to meditate, which gives us back that mindful presence. So those are some ways to manage. Now let's dig into what are some tactical things you can do. So the first thing, and it's one that Allison talked about, it's set boundaries. I do this a lot. So for example, if you know you have several customer meetings where you're going to look at potential new business, you can decide in advance that I will not hold fewer than 2 or more than 4 in a given day. If you think about it, okay, that's setting a boundary. Okay, so I'm not going to do fewer than 2, more than 4. What is that doing? It's actually enabling you to stay on track, even if your energy level is low, because you start to recognize what is draining you. If you go in, 5 and 6 and you're just out of gas, that's not going to help you be productive in that meeting. 2, have planned downtime in your day. I do this a lot. There is a time that I slot where all I do is check trades and look at LinkedIn, because that's what I like to do in my downtime. I take 30 minutes and I do just that. It kind of refreshes me a little bit. I also like what Allison said. I listen to music with no lyrics. That's a really good one. 3, schedule time to do that in-depth work that requires all of those dimensions of you. Schedule that time, because that's the kind of work where you got to really get granular. You got to really have all of you. So if you know you're not at your 5-star or 4-star at 4 o'clock in the day, don't plan time to do that in-depth work then. Always have your best self for when you have to do that in-depth work. 4, this is the most important one I want to share with you, and it's track your optimal best to see a pattern, because many of you may not know when your optimal best energy pattern is. So if you start tracking it and you see, oh, I seem to be on all cylinders at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's going to be your optimal energy zone. So start to track when that may be for you. And 5, last but not least, learn to delegate. Many of us don't like to do that, but that also helps. So let me throw out some fun facts for you guys. For many of us who know successful people, I'm talking like a Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, a Jeff Bezos. They publicly talk about how they manage their energy and how they value their time by doing simply nothing. They all say that. That is one of the key things on how they manage their energy. For example, Jeff Bezos, he does not start any of his meetings in the day until 10 a.m. That's when he starts every meeting during the day because he knows before that he is not at his optimal energy best. He also looks at that time because he values that time before that just to putter around. He says it protects his energy levels and allows him to maintain enough bandwidth to get things done. So that's Jeff Bezos. So as I wrap up here, I want you guys to remember this. Remember, your energy fluctuates throughout the day. It's going to do that, but we have the power to renew it. So here's a question I'm going to pose to you. It's rhetorical now, but I want you to think about it. Are you the person in your organization or the leader that recognizes when others are not stellar or they just don't have it together? If you are, here's what I'd like you to do. Meet them where they are. You will in turn give them a remarkable sense of loyalty and support. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeanette.
So once we have our time mapped out and our energy at an optimal level, or at least in a way where we can manage it throughout the day, one of the things that I like to do most is make sure my workspace is going to help me achieve what I need to for that day. So very similar to Allison and Crystal, I like to go through my agenda, make some blocks, make sure I'm not back to back to back. But I also like to make sure that the space that I'm working in brings me joy. So today's a gloomy day in Chicago. You can't tell because I have my background blurred. So I make sure my ring light is on. So it makes me feel like, okay, at least if the sun's not shining, I'm not looking like a pale mess. I make sure to have water and snacks if I need it, but also that my workspace is clear and I'm comfortable. I feel like sometimes when we jump into work, and we just jump into our desk without making sure we're comfortable, it can lead to just angst throughout the day. And because I mentioned that I'm hybrid, I have to make sure I have my computer and my mouse and my cords. I try to make sure that at least the two places where I have desks have those, so I'm not bringing them back and forth. But if I ever have to stop at a coffee shop or stop at a customer, I try to make sure I always have those with me at all times. So no matter where I stop and end up working or taking a call, I have what I need to conduct that call, do my business, and still be productive. I make sure there's things around me that bring me joy. I'm a big reader, and so I have a little bookmark to remind me to finish reading the books on my list. And it's just something that I get to look forward to. I have pictures of my husband and friends around me. Similar to Allison, I have a humidifier and essential oils. So just try to create a space that makes me happy. Even if I know the day is going to be a little bit more challenging, I like to make sure that my physical workspace, if you have the ability to do so, make sure your workstation is ergonomic. So your back and low back are supported if you're sitting all day. If you have the ability to stand and raise your desk, Allison made the really great recommendation to schedule stretch breaks. But if you're able to take a call standing up, or some people even have walking desks with their treadmills, getting some energy and just altering where you work can change your mood as well. Let's see.
I'll jump in there on the walking pad because I'm started one in January, and I cannot, if you, and really in any office space, I cannot recommend one enough. I think it's easy to get lost with walking pads, and you see these crazy people on the internet who apparently walk all day at work. Where I found really easy success there is I'm not walking all day. It does not work for my brain for many, many tasks to do it. But for the first 30 minutes of my day, I am hopping on that walking pad. That's when I'm making my list of like, what are the priorities for my day? And then I usually aim for 2 of my phone calls. So I don't like it for video calls, but for 2 phone calls that I take, which most people that ends up happening whether they're scheduled or not, I always jump on that. I get about 3,000 to 5,000 steps a day just added by those 3 ways. So highly, highly recommend it. I can even share out, like I have mine was like $150 off of Amazon, and it is still going strong with that today.
I also love walking meetings. You know, Allison hosted the Walk With Me series, which was great. I have a lot of colleagues that are not based in the United States. And so I have to catch them at the end of their workday, beginning of mine. And like Allison too, I have to walk the dog, and I want to get some, start my day with high energy. So a lot of those times, if we don't need to be video conferencing, I'll take those on the walk. And we just, as an organization, we let people know like, hey, I'm going to be walking. I will say the boundaries thing also really resonates with me. I try to block the last hour of my day. It says walk Stella. Stella's the dog. It's really my 1 hour of like, nobody can call me so I can get the work done. But I take those calls also if I'm walking the dog, like, oh, I have a catch-up call with one of my sales leads and I wasn't able to talk to them throughout the day. I can call them when I'm on my walk. So the physical workspace, if you're one where you have to be in the same place all the time, creating things or bringing things into your workspace that bring you joy, make you smile, especially if it's a really tense day. An accountability dog. I have a colleague that has a visualization yacht because she's going to buy herself a yacht someday. So whatever it is that brings you a smile to your face, kind of surrounding yourself in your workspace with that, it really just makes the day a little bit easier.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. With that, we're going to kind of transition over and kind of take any questions that you guys have. So we're going to unspotlight all of ourselves. We're going to encourage you if you want to be on camera. I'd love to, if you want to raise your hand and we're calling you to answer a question. There's also a couple in the chat that we can kick around as well. But I think for me, when I think about it, it's like when you think about this, what are the questions you have for everyone and maybe how they implemented this? Kind of key moments, like everyone's happy to also just kick around to some ideas based on the situation you're in. And okay, well, that's a great idea for you, Allison, but that's not going to work for me. And there's some very smart people in this room who could probably help you come up with some good strategies for implementing even just 1 or 2 of these things. And we can kick around. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. But there were a couple in the chat too that we can kind of touch on and chat through. I think the one I saw that was interesting was, when did you realize that you really needed to make a change in your schedule, your energy, your whatever the thing was, and kind of how did you recognize that and then take that next step?
I'll take that one, Christy. It's difficult because for us women, I think what we do is we just go, and we want to just keep going and doing, and we have that in our professional as well as for our families. And so for me, whatever you want to call it, hit the wall. It was just coming to the realization. I just realized I wasn't getting, done at certain times of the day, or I didn't even feel like it. It wasn't just a matter of not accomplishing. I didn't feel like it. And so what does that do for us as women in the workforce in, being loyal and responsible and accountable in our roles, especially when, no matter what your role, you have someone that you report into and in a leadership role. Are they going to be depending on you Yes. Is your husband and your kids and your dogs going to be dependent on you? Yes. So as Allison clearly talked about her husband being at 20 and 25, when you're not all in, it's like that stick in the pond and it's a ripple effect. It just keeps going out. So what you have to do is recognize and be honest with yourself. So when, I hit the wall, I just started kind of drilling down to what is going on here? What is this? First thing I thought is, oh, I must not be feeling well. I was full of excuses. Oh, I don't feel well, or whatever. And then I realized it was nobody else but me. And then I had to drill down to, well, what is it? And it was that time of day that I just was not at my best. And I started managing better based on when I'm at my best. Now, I still get stuff accomplished when I'm not at that optimal, because we all do. We're at work however long, whether you're working remotely or in the office, you still got to get stuff done. But when when you can literally plow out and at your best and set boundaries, say no, delegate,
Let's
it
touch on
actually makes,
boundaries for a second, because I
yep,
think
it
that
makes
I
people
saw that a
respect
ton in the
you.
chat,
Yes,
right? That
yep,
boundaries is a place everyone's struggling, right? We all know these things in
everybody.
theory, but what maybe if each person, and then we're going to get to time here, like has like one tip on how you're
Boundaries.
holding a boundaries.
Yep.
I'll tell you, for me, this book, if I can get it in there, I put it in the chat. It's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. She is amazing. Her name is Nedra. I went and saw her talk. She has a workbook. To Crystal's point, it took something big in my family for me to realize that I needed boundaries, and I needed boundaries with my family. I needed boundaries with work. I needed boundaries with everything. Reading that book really encouraged me. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to put in the boundaries. It takes vulnerable conversations with your manager to say, hey, I need this, and to advocate for what you need. But also, we all have teams. And if you want people to respect your boundaries, you have to also encourage them to have boundaries as well. So, Allison, when you mentioned taking vacation, I know I unplug on vacation and I leave my second phone at home. But when my sales team is on vacation and they reach out to me, I'm like, you are on vacation.
Yep.
Enjoy your vacation. This is not urgent. It's just pasta. We will get back to it when you're back.
It's just eggs, just pasta.
That's so helpful. Thank you. Jane, looks like you have a question. Jump in.
It's not a question, it's a statement, because early in this conversation, the words ask and afraid were used. And I just want to make sure that as we're thinking about this, we've had 3 incredible examples here, 4 of women that have reframed their thinking. They've taken ownership of their personal operating model. But I know in past calls, we've had people use these terms of, I'm afraid to talk to, I asked for this. Ladies, you can't be afraid of that. I know we all have managers and leaders that have expectations of us that are unattainable. Please don't be afraid. And if we can think about that moving forward, removing that from our vernacular, because I don't want any of you to be afraid. I have taught clear, concise communication and operating models to leaders throughout the industry. And the minute that they do it, it should cascade. So if your team isn't doing it and you're not doing it, be that light for change. Because if you don't have an
Sounds like we're going to
model,
need you to come on next month, Jane, and really.
Love that. Yeah.
no, I got to practice what I preach too. So
I've already noted your name down, and you are on my list now.
You're so kind. But seriously, ladies, again, those words afraid and ask, you need to tell them what you need, what you are going to do, and how it's going to benefit the organization. Done. There are no questions after that point, because you're going to be your best self.
And that's the key right there, Jane. How it benefits the organization, so it doesn't just turn into a me. Those are excellent. Kudos.
And remember, when someone asks you for a minute, you tell them, I can give you 20 this afternoon. Put it on my calendar.
Yes. And just, my last closing on the boundaries piece, something a little out of the woods for me that kind of was inspired. I realized, reflecting more, when did I start creating boundaries? And I'm in a women's circle, And it's it's an in-person one in Denver, and I meet with them twice a week. We call it an acceptance circle. And having a support system to really reassure you and support and rally behind you, it takes a village. It really does. It's a very hard thing. And I've seen the things about the family, and I know that that's probably the most challenging, is the people who love you the most and you want to give your time to. And if you are the breadwinner, or if you need that job and it's, a make it or break it for your family, it is so challenging to give yourself back to your family. And also, but find some support groups, talk with your friends, don't make it toxic, make it supportive, and tell them what you need and how they can check in, and have like those accountability moments to give you that reassurance that you are doing it right. And it's not going to take the first conversation, it's going to take multiple, but just finding that space of understanding and being able to find that right fit of, okay, we meet these parameters, this is our boundaries, and I'll give you 100% when I can. It applies to work and also to family. So I just wanted to give that nugget as well, that there are resources.
Thank you, Allison. I see we have a few more hands. I know we are at time. I think, happy to stay on and chat through a few of those, but maybe Julie, if you want to kind of give our closing remarks, and then we can jump onto those if people want to stay on for a few more minutes, happy to answer a few.
Yeah, we're really setting the boundary of trying to make sure that we end on time. But there's a good number of us who are totally willing to stay and would love to continue the conversation. So please, if you had your hand up, we'll still be here. And I imagine that several other folks will too. I have to just give an amazing shout out to Christy, to Amy, to Erin, and those that really help put on these networking and virtual meetings that we're having, these member meetings. You all probably know the time, effort, and energy it takes to do this, right? So my heart and my absolute sincere thanks on behalf of all the members for that. Kendra, thank you for being our ride or die on Zoom and for always being there to make sure that, like, okay, does anybody have any slides and how's this going to roll? Like, hey, it's great to catch up, but we need to decide how we're going to make this happen. So thank you for that as well. I freaking love this topic. So many women that I talk to and have mentored in the past, this is the hardest thing to discipline yourself around. And part of it is you're listening to other people and you're going, dang, man, I wish I could be like that, And at the end of the day, you do you. You've got to be deliberate, and you really have to make it you. You can't adopt something that somebody else has if it doesn't feel genuine to who you are. So I love that. Also, know it's a process. That was one of the hardest things for me to grab a hold of. And it's interesting when you hear somebody talk about like that morning slot in my consulting business, in my life after corporate. That was the first thing I grabbed a hold of. There's some magic to that. So I would encourage you there. The other thing I would say is we can continue this conversation well beyond this. Chrissy, if you don't mind, would you put the link to the private group in the chat, the LinkedIn private group? That's a space where nobody but members can see what you're saying and the conversations that you're having with each other. And what we find is that it's a really organic space to be able to do that. Finally, one ask from our mentorship team. We currently have 5 women who need mentors. We have over 50 women in our mentorship program, and we are blown away by the response, which just tells us more that we want to lean into each other. But we do have a need for 5 more mentors for this cycle of mentorship. So if you would email me at info@foodservicewomensalliance.com, if you are willing to be a mentor for someone, we would absolutely love you for that. And finally, I just want to say, you know what? Thank you for being part of FWA. What we found out through this process is women really need other women, and that we're all stronger together. And that as we lean into each other, we are building our own selves up in that space. Lots of stuff coming down the pike. We have a 2025 planning committee that is just charging after the what's next for FWA. More than anything, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of it, for trusting us with you, and for being here today. So, Christy, onward with the after meeting.
I couldn't find my unmute. But if anyone did want to have any more questions, we're happy to take them here for a few minutes. Otherwise, we hope that everyone has just a beautiful, beautiful Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette and Crystal and Allison, for bringing the A game. Everyone can see why I said these are the 3 board members that we needed for this segment. Like, is there any doubt? And by the way, Allison,
Yes.
I love check yourself before you wreck yourself.
It just was in my head when I was writing my notes.
I freaking love it. I freaking love it. And I also really love this idea of, you know, like the things that bring you joy, like between all 3 of you, you talked about those things that like bring you joy and, you know, make you feel at home in the space that you're working in. Yeah, I learned a lot. See, I took like.
Julie, I used to say it's just mayonnaise, right? It's just pasta. It's just eggs. It really, really is a reframing of how you approach it.
Such
Yeah,
a forgiving business.
Yeah, Jane, you know what's really funny about that is years ago when I worked for the French's Food Company, and one of the big commercial, non-commercial companies, you probably know which one, is in the Washington, D.C. area. And I remember I was on the phone with my mom and I'm like, oh, I have to go. You know, I didn't realize this was gonna, but you know, we're talking contracts and all this. She goes, another mustard emergency. It was like, oh, you got me.
It's so true. Our family sees it. They do. So
Yeah, I did tell her, Mom, it's Washington, D.C. It's top secret. I can't really tell you about it.
My mom's an emergency room nurse, so she likes to really put me in my place when I'm going off the rails about some pasta emergency. She goes, "Oh, you want to know what I did today?" I go, "No, no. I know you save lives, but we serve pasta."
It's important. They
Yeah.
need it to recover, you know?
100%.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If there's anything else anyone wants to jump in and share, welcome you to do so. Otherwise, we will start to close this out.
Good to
Thank
see
you.
everyone.
Good to
Have
see
a
you all.
wonderful
Good to see so many
weekend.
new
Have a great
faces
weekend,
too.
ladies.
Thanks for being here.